Okay, we're going to talk about the restore functionality in Backup 1.3. So it's fairly simple. It does have a little bit of nuance to it, but it's really flexible, I think. So you call the BackupRestoreDB SP, and you pass it the server you want to restore to, the name of the database, the type of backup you want to restore, and the backup location. We'll talk about that in a second. And then I believe there are a couple more parameters here on the end that I'm not sure what they are right now, but we'll look them up before the end of the video. Okay, so let's start with configs first. I think I need to see, I'm so disorganized. This is a very informal video. I don't really have anything planned. I'm just wanting to show you how this works. So let's see, when I come here and I go to the backup restore settings path, and if I look at all these settings, there you go, and it's a lot like the backup settings path. It starts off with a database name, which can be Minion default. It has a server name. Now this is really interesting. We have different profiles, basically, or different configs for different servers. So you can restore one database. You can restore the CDC database to Minion DevCon with one set of settings, and then you could restore it to another database with to another server with yet a different set of settings. So depending on where you want to restore it, you can give it different settings. Now, by default, let's go ahead and take it, and of course, it has to be isActive equals true, right? So you can turn these settings on and off really easily. Now, let's take a look at this default setting. So I've got Minion name default. Of course, that means all databases, right? So every database that I restore to this server, every full restore, is going to have these settings. And really, this is just a reinforcement of this restore type, because it really only applies to fulls, because you can't have file placement for diff and log backup. So fulls are the only ones that really matters with this, right? Maybe the restore name, and we'll talk about that in a second. Now, file type, and type name, and then restore drive. So all of this refers to what type of file you want to have this setting for. So this is got by file type. And so what type of file is it? For all files. So for all files, I want to restore them to their original drive and their original path. So Minion default means the originals where they are on the prod box right now, or on this current box right now, and that is all of them. So there won't be anything new at all. And so by default, you can see that I'm restoring, that I've got dynamic, right? So I'm restoring the DB name as just the DB name. So I'm restoring it by default to the current location under its current database name. Easy enough, right? So let's go ahead and expand a couple of these guys and get into some specifics. There we go. Now I can also go by file type MDF. So I want the MDFs to go to see my DBs, and I want the NDFs to go there as well, right? That's just for this one database. And I want the LDFs, file type of LDF, to go there as well. And let's go ahead and make this file name now, instead of file type, I'm going by file name, except for this one logical file name, mal issues, I want to go to mal. So let's go mydb's mal, and let's change this to log. And I don't think we have any NDFs on here. Yeah, we must. NDF, and let's say MDF. There we go. So we'll just change those like that. There we go. So now, and you notice all these settings are false right now, but we'll get to that in a minute. So now I have all of these settings, and you can see that I've got my all row, right, just in case. So, and that's how that works, right? If I have my file name set to mal issues, but I want everybody else to go to this other location, then I'll have my all row for file type all, and then my override for mal-mr issues. But it just so happens that here I want MDFs to go to one place, NDFs, LDFs, except for this one that I can't fit anywhere else, and I want it to go there, right? So we've got the exact same thing here. I've got the CDC database for the same server, and I've got the MDF and LDF being mapped to different drives and different locations. And of course, my restore database name can be as rich as I wanted. It uses the exact same mechanism that the other one does, so, or that the file name does for backup. So for the restore paths and the file names and the extensions and the and the restored database name, they all use the dynamic naming. The only thing that doesn't is the backup location and the restore drive, and I can't really think of a reason to have a dynamic restore drive, right? So but the restore path can be dynamic, so you can put it anywhere you want, right? And the file name, so in case you wanted to name it after the database, right, so you could give the database, the restore database name and the file names the same name, right? Only MDF and NDF sort of thing, right? So if you had only one drive and one folder you wanted to put everything in, you could at least name it after the database, and you won't get the conflicts that you get now because the files already exist, right? So there's a lot of flexibility in how this is done. Now you can also put in server labels, I believe. Well, yeah, you should be able to. So when you pass in this, so when you put in a server label, exact same thing, right? The same rules apply from the other one. I haven't tested server labels specifically. And then there's the isActive, where you can flip these guys on and off. Now there's also, and we'll get into a couple of these scenarios here in a minute. There's restore tuning thresholds. So when I go into here, it looks a lot like the other thresholds table. Only now it has a server name column, because I may want to have separate thresholds for separate servers, right? So Minion default is going to be all, right? All servers, all databases are going to get these settings here. And you notice even in here, where is it? There is a replace flag, right? So you can you can have a replace flag in here if you need to set the replace action. If you do want to overwrite the same database every single night, then you just hit replace and it'll tack that on there. So I think this is pretty self-explanatory, right? If the database is over a certain size, then it'll use these, it'll use those, and you have the time of day and the day of week, all that stuff that that you have with the normal tuning, and of course is active or not. So now you can have very finely tuned restores as well. Okay, let's get back to this. Let's go ahead and take a look at a couple restores if I can find the window. Here we are. So let's go ahead and look at this guy. Boom. So let's see what I've done. Let me paste this in here. Oops, that's not a paste. That's a paste. There we go. So I'm going to highlight this guy. And let's make this stuff a little bit easier to read. Let's go in the selection. There we go. Okay, so now I can read that. So from disk equals bindicon, and you notice that the way this works is if this server name doesn't equal the current server name, and it's not a UNC path, then it automatically puts in the the UNC path pointing back to this server name. Okay, and right now it defaults to the admin share. So if it were on K drive, it would be K $, right? So this is controlled by the backup files table. So I read the files out of there, and if the file location isn't a UNC path and the two server names don't match, so in other words, if you're not trying to install it on the same server, right, trying to just overwrite on the same server, then it'll change it to a UNC path. So there you go. All right, so we've got this guy right here. Now I'm going to move to, this is the original location. I have changed the file name. I've given it an extension of the date, right? Why not? and the log, I'm moving it to a different file name. So and of course I'm using 300 max transfer size of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I've got replace turned on. So let's see, I'm getting the original file name here for the MDF, and for the LDF I'm moving it. So let's take a look at how that works. And these are, I've already forgotten what database that is. That is Minion Dev. Okay, so for Minion Dev, I don't have, gotta get over here where I can see it. Here we go. So here are my 3 Minion Dev rows, and let's see which ones of them I have active. I have these bottom 2 active, so rows 11 and 12 are active. There we go. So you can see that I'm putting my restore drive on C. My restore path is the original path, right? And I'm changing the file name to date. So let's go ahead and get that date out of there, because that's not very good. Let's use Minion default for the restore extension. There we go. And of course the restore database name we're going to keep the same. I'm going to keep this one as, actually I'm going to change this one to month name, just to show you can do almost anything you want, right? And this one is still going to go to archive. And actually, let's change this one to, let's change it to date, just because we can. So let's see what happens when we do that. I get my restore statement. Let's go a couple lines down. Let's do that. Format it a little bit. There we go. And now I'm backing up to the same place, but you notice how I've gone to my MDF because I used Minion default for the extension. And I'm backing up to a folder with the date in it, and this one is .october because I've got the month name in there. And of course that's absolutely ludicrous, right? You probably wouldn't do something like that, but who the hell am I to say, right? Now same thing with the database name. I've got database name underscore date right here, but I could easily let's put the month name. Why not? That's always nice. There we go. Now, it's a really good idea to put both of these in here. I don't know what would happen if you had 2 separate names in here, so just make sure that they're the same. And let's take that out of the equation, huh? So now, let's run this guy again. There we go. And let's go down one more time. And selection, go. There we go. And now I've got Minion Dev October, and everything else stays the same because I didn't change anything else, right? Let's look at the tuning thresholds really quick. I've got 300 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you can see we can change that. I want to use 1000 and 0, right? I want to take off the replace because this is a brand new database and I don't need to replace it. So now when I do this, hey, I picked the right window. There we go. Oops. I didn't actually copy that. Copy. There we go. Right there. There we go, and let's see what happened. Now I've got buffer count equals 1000, but I don't have the rest of the values, and we are golden, right? Because I turned those other values off. So there you go. The SP just returns a restore statement called command, and then you can do whatever you want with that restore statement. You can grab it and munge it even further, right? So if you don't like this $, then you can change that $sign to whatever you want. You can alter that piece of it, right? So you can do whatever you want with that. Unfortunately, right now there's no way to alter what this does, but I'm open to suggestions if you find that you really need something that I don't have. but this should get you going with the basics of how this works. It's pretty easy once you get the hang of it. Actually, I did want to show you one more thing. Let's go ahead and look at mal.mr issues, because all of those are turned off, aren't they? Yeah. So let's go ahead and do this. Let's go mal.mr issues all the way down to here. Oops, I can't do that. There we go. So I've got all these guys, and that's full, blah, blah, blah. Okay, good. So let's turn all of these guys on. I don't even know if I have a backup for this or not. Let's see. So I'm going to turn all these on all the way down to there. So let's go 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. There we go. That should do. Now let's just see if we have a backup for it. Right here. I haven't the slightest. Hey, look, I got a thing. So let's take a look at what this restore statement looks like. If I can get that done. There we go. Let's see what this one looks like. And again, let's format this a little. And right, so this is what happens. You get a little screwy. I don't have a backup, so it didn't give me any files, right? So this is what happens when you don't have a backup for a database. Let's go ahead and back that guy up real quick. Let's do this. Just for completeness, because I kind of did want to show you how this works. But you notice when we get the backup taken, it'll automatically read the latest backup out of the file, or out of the files table, and it'll use it. Oh, you know what? We never talked about the backup location column. So the backup location column, you can leave that null, or you can put backup in there. Now it accepts backup, copy, and move, I believe. And what this is for is this is the location where you're going to take the backup files from. Okay, so if you put backup in here, it's going to take it from the location that they were backed up to. But if you put copy in here, then it'll put it in the location that you copied it to. And of course, if you put move in there, then it'll take the files from the location that you moved them to. So if you've got a process where you take a backup and then you copy it somewhere else, and that other location is more accessible to your restore drive, then just put copy in here. You don't have to suffer with the poor performance. You don't have to put a pre-step in here to copy it across or something like that. You've already got it there, right? So you've already got it prepped and in that location. Now you can use it. It's actually pretty nifty. Okay, let's see. There we are. So we should have a backup now. Let's see if we get our restore. And I got nothing. Now, and the reason why I got this command null is because this is still in the old system and I didn't set any of my file names or extensions, right? So this is, I'm just going to steal from this, right? So I'll say, where the hell is it? Start with now, right here, there, 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 and there, and my extension. Let's just use the Minion default. There we go. Backup location will be the same. Restore database name. Let's just do the same thing here. Let's do database name and date. There we go. And I think, yeah, I need to turn this row back on. There we go. Now, now that I've got these guys filled in, I should probably get something in my restore command. Yay! There we go. Okay, now let's take a look at this. Oh, I'll leave that there to show you what happens when you don't have a backup. And now let's go ahead and do the move and the selection. We're there. And now you can see that I've got these guys going to the same location, issues and issues log. And I've got my restore coming from here. And I'm using buffer count equals 50 and replace. Let me go back in here and look at the restore tuning thresholds table. And so you can see here for mal-mr issues on this box, I'm doing 50 and replace. And let's change that to 350. Why not? Then I'll come here and run my statement again. And I'm not going to bother doing all of that, but you'll see that it is now 350 over here. So let's see, where did I have that stuff going to? That was the MDF and the LDF. So if I come here to my mal-mr issues, MDF is going to MyDB's MDF, and that's going to MyDB's LDF. I don't know if that's where it's actually going. Yes, this one's going to MalDB's mal, and this one's going to MalDB's. So let's see what settings are being kept here. There we go. So there's MalDB's mal. So that is a file name override, right? So I want everything to go there, except I want this specific file to go to MalDB's mal. So that's the specific file name that I'm sending to MalDB's mal. And this one's just going to MyDB's, and it's the log. So this one being the log, the LDFs, but I've got a specific log override for mal-mr issues log that I'm sending to MyDB's. Now you see how this can get a little thick, right? But it allows you to do anything you want. Now what this is for is all of the logs, if I've got 10 log files, they're all going to go to MyDB's log, except for this one. So you can even put different logs in different locations if you want to, just like you can put different NDFs in a location. So I could put all of the NDFs here under NDF, and then just this one NDF. This is actually an MDF, but if it were an NDF, you could put that one NDF under a separate location and all the rest of them in another location, or you can specify them by file name. So by file type is going to be all, MDF, NDF, or LDF, and by file name is going to be the logical name. And that is how you work the restore functionality. This video is a little bit longer than I wanted it to be, but it takes a few minutes to explain something like this. And remember, you've got the full weight of the dynamic name parser behind you, because this uses the exact same SP for its dynamic names. So feel free to do that. Add custom ones, anything you need, and good luck.